Hello, welcome. I am Hope here at Crafty Hope, and I'm about to work on week 2 of the Seek, Gather, Create challenge. This is a mixed media scavenger hunt challenge that comes from 4 artists: Lisa, Tina, Laura, and guest artist Casey. I'll have all their links below. This happens about twice a year, and I think they do it like in the winter and the summer. So keep your eye out around February to do it again, or play along now. It's a 4-week challenge, and each week they give 4 prompts for you to seek, gather, and create with. And you can create anything you want. You can work in an art journal, or shoot, you can even make some jewelry, which I've done before. This season I have decided to make these little shadow boxes using, well, this is a Tim Holtz vignette box, but I have other boxes that are not, and then some laser cut 1/4-inch plywood pieces that fit in them. I'm going to mount them in. So that is, you can see that's my substrate. The prompts this week for week 2 are a bird silhouette, leaves, the color teal, and a grid. So I'm going to show you what I've sought and gathered, and we'll get to it. And y'all, I have to tell you, I've got a new like glass surface here that I bought on clearance. I'm not sure if I like it. You can see this paper over here. I'm having to cover up this light that's reflecting over here, and back here is my my magnifying light. So I'm not sure how I'm feeling about it at the moment. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a glass surface, how do you deal with it in the light? Because I feel like that's still super dark, but I don't want the, Anyway, bird silhouette. I knew I had some kind of die cut, and I did. I had, this is a Tim Holtz. It's one of the big dies. I think it's called Bird and Branch. You can see it's exactly what it is. I also have these, which are the funny little birds. What are they called? I know it has a name. Bird Talk. And it comes with some stamps that go with these little funny little birds. But since they have the, anyway, I decided against those, but I have those just in case I change my mind. So that's bird silhouette. I think is pretty great. Leaves, I was kind of like looking around trying to figure out something, and I realized I have this stencil that I made using some graphics stencil material. That's this like laurel wreath type thing, and then this botanical. Both of them have leaves, so I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll use my own stencil. The color teal, I was trying to think of things that I had that had the word teal on them, so specifically said they were teal. So like the Tim Holtz peacock feathers seems like, or mermaid lagoon, even one of them looks like it is a teal color, but neither say teal. So I knew I had these Lindy's sprays in Time Travel Teal and Tibetan Poppy Teal, which I love these, this one especially. But sitting right next to him was also this, which looks a lot like those. And this is a tulip fabric spray. But while I was getting myself situated, I realized I also have some embroidery floss here that is also teal. So I might use that either. And then the last thing is a grid. And while I was looking for something, oh, actually this was already on my desk from when I did the jelly printing last week for that Seek, Gather, Create challenge. I'll direct you to that. And I didn't use this piece, but it is a piece of notebook paper with grid on it. It's even like numbered from the like ledger style notebook I have. So, and it is aged. Did I age it? I think I may have dyed this. I may have coffee dyed this. It looks aged in some way. So I might use this. My real thought was to use some hardware cloth that's like a grid pattern, but I can't find my good pliers, and I have to go out in the yard to cut it, and it can be really prickly, and so I decided against that. But I might could pull out some of the drywall joint tape that has grids on it. Ooh, that's a really neat idea. I may grab some of that too. I'm looking at it across the room, so I might use that as well instead of this, or with this. I don't know. I think, and I don't know what I'm going to create, y'all. I just know it's going to be on that. that's in here. And this, okay, I'm talking because I'm delaying things because I don't know what I'm gonna do. So let me get started, I guess. The first thing I did was seal that wood panel with some white gesso, and that's mostly because I knew I was going to collage onto it, and I wanted to make sure it didn't absorb all the adhesive I put in. So I figured gesso was a good way to do that. I suppose I could have put down a layer of my adhesive and let it dry, like a medium, and let it dry and then put that on top, but yeah, gesso, whatever, it's down. There was a bit of futzing in this project that we'll get to toward the end, and I clipped quite a bit of that out because it was painful for me to watch. I don't want to make you watch that also. So I put a single layer of gesso on there. Like I said, it kind of soaked in pretty well. I'm going to dry it real quick. And then I'm going to come in with my fluid matte medium and that bit of graph notebook paper or whatever it is. Like I said, I think it was something from my stash, but it could have been something somebody gifted me. I don't know. It was around, so, and it had a grid on it. So I am going to add some of the hardware cloth as well that also has a grid. So I've got grid in here in two different ways. So that's the fluid matte medium. I'm applying it pretty thickly, trying to make sure that it's not soaking into that panel. And then putting that piece of graph paper there, just straight edge to straight edge, covering the entire back panel. And I'm using a scraping tool. This is from just Harbor Freight, y'all, to kind of ease out any of the bubbles and wrinkles. But it's not a huge deal because I know I'm going to collage over the top of it. So I want to add some texture anyway. Then I did tear the edges off just because I don't want any of this to overhang. So, and from there I'm going to start collaging. I'm going to grab some paper that's already on my desk. You can see this is some of the jelly printed paper with the plastic wrap from last week, and I will use more of the fluid matte medium to stick it down. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of collaging. I know I just wanted to add a bit of texture and interest, I guess, the background, but it's not really about what I'm collaging on there. It's just getting I don't know, like I said, getting some texture on there. So I'm gonna put, like, I think, yeah, just 3 pieces of this book paper that's been jelly printed with a touch of blue on it, and that really kind of works since I knew I was going to use the teal sprays. So if it had blue on it already, that was fine. And here is that hardware cloth. You can see it's a grid pattern. I cut a big piece off, and then I'm going to cut it also down into about 3 strips. And I did try to intentionally work with the largest strip first, and yeah, I'm going to do 3. And again, I keep saying again, even though I haven't told you again what. I cut that strip down into 3 pieces and it does have its own adhesive to it, but it's not super strong. So I am using the fluid medium to help me get it to stick. Yeah, and I think this piece here is going to move at some point. I'm going to try to put some more of that medium over the top of everything, and I'm looking at this trying to decide because that lower right there you can see doesn't have much added to it, and I was trying to decide if I felt like it needed more texture or if it was good as a place to rest. Did you see that? I brushed that that little bit of that tape right off of the panel, and I covered the whole thing with a pretty thin layer of the fluid medium and then dried it. So here, I'm going to use all 3 of those sprays, both of the Lindy's and then that fabric spray. And I just recently organized all of my sprays, and so these were sitting next to each other, and that's why I chose them. Now, while it is still wet, I'm going to use a fairly wet paintbrush and move those around in the background. Just getting a nice blue color with some texture there. Both of the Lindy spray have a metallic mica powder in them, so I am starting to see some of that, but it's not super prominent. So I'll dry this again. Lots of drying in all of my processes. And then I wanted to I wanted to stencil on these little things. I was thinking that I would do green on them, but I felt that was adding too many other colors, and so I finally was like, you know what if I just do white, and it would add some texture. So I pulled out, this is some Lucas titanium white acrylic paint, and I put it on that scrap paper that's on my desk. But I don't know, the metallic sprays in there were calling to me. Like I said, I could see a little glimmer in there and decided, you know what, let's go ahead and throw some gold at this. That was the color for last week, and I do love some gold. As well, the texture from that hardware joint tape, what did I say it was? Drywall joint tape. The texture from it really was calling out to be accentuated. So I'm putting a little bit of some acrylic paint. This is just craft acrylic paint. I believe it is the Delta Cream Coat 14 karat gold, one of my favorites. And so yeah, you can see just putting a little bit on my finger. If you don't want to use your finger, you could always put a glove on or of some kind, or try maybe a dry brush technique. But I have found using my fingers works great. Then I decided that rather than just have the gold in that one spot, to maybe have some splatter. So I go and I put a bunch of water on a paintbrush, mix it in, and y'all, some of that splatter I was not happy with. I did try to pick it up here, but there was no going back. So kind of let it ride. I'm going to do a little more splattering, trying to get more kind of streakiness on there, because I did get that one weird streakiness in the middle. I am trying to keep this new that glass surface on my desk clean, but we'll see how long that lasts. All right, so when I dried that gold seriously popped, and from there it's time to start with my stenciling. So I am going to use those botanical leaves I've got on the right side of that stencil I made, and a stencil brush thing. What is that called? It has a specific name. I don't know. It's a really blunt brush, and I wanted to test it. I've never used that for stenciling, so I thought before I go straight onto my artwork, let me make sure that I know how to use this brush. So, stippling brush. That's it. It's a stippling brush. So I am going to put the white paint on to my panel there. I knew going in that Lindy spray is water reactive and would tint a lot of my white paint into like a lighter shade of the teal. So I was okay with that. I am trying to, I didn't want a straight line of these botanicals across. So I am varying the heights of it, and that gives it a little more interest, because the focal for this is indeed going to be that bird on a branch thing, and it's going to be black and kind of in your face, and I wanted these to just kind of be in the background. So I think that's why part of the reason I went for the white, is to keep everything kind of neutral except for that prominent teal. So I'm stippling these on there. One of them is not super perfect, but again, it's background. Oh, the stem of that didn't touch the bottom, and I wanted to make sure they touched the bottom. Now I am going to go across, and make sure that even on the right and left edges, I've got a little bit of that white paint. And this is how I'm putting leaves in there. And granted, it's not straight up just single leaves or anything like that. They are leaves on a branch of some kind, but that's how the prompt leaves inspired me. So I think once I get that done, I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then start working with my bird. Nope, I'm going to ink up the edges. So I've got some distress ink and black soot that I'm going to put just on the edges to frame up this, because I am going to put that black bird on there. And I wanted, you know, it's not a huge thing. It's just, it adds its own personal shadow. Now I'm going to start working with that bird on a branch. Now I'm going to tell you that this I die cut onto some black construction paper and played with it for a while and decided that it would be a whole lot more sturdy if I put it on some kind of plastic. And I just so happened to have some of the Graphics Arts Duralar Brights in black, and y'all, I took that to my die cut machine, which is a Sizzix Big Kick, ran it through, and it cut beautifully. So I decided that was going to be, to have that plastic film was going to be a lot more sturdy than some cardstock, even though it's really nice, not cardstock, construction paper. I can't remember the brand of construction paper it is, but it's really nice, but it just, I wanted something more sturdy. So I'm using that Duralar. And here's where things got fiddly. I messed with that little bird branch, bending the edge of it because I knew I wanted to mount it somehow onto the box. And I wanted it to sit up above, like floating over the background. So that's why I'm bending things in there. And it is super duper fiddly. And I'll tell you what I didn't do was go double check what adhesives work best with the Duralar. And the adhesives I end up choosing are not those. So I'm going to have some problems with that. So I encourage you to go check out the graphicsarts.com site. I will likely put a link to it below for you to check out. But there's a list in in their films, in their Duralar film link, there's a list of glues and adhesive that work better. I am trying E6000 here because it, for me, is one of my favorites and just seemed the most natural thing for gluing plastic to wood. And it's going to work eventually. But it stays really wet and slick on the Duralar because it is a plastic, and does a lot of moving around while I'm trying to adhere it. And I got real frustrated. So I cut out a lot of my fiddling with the Duralar and the adhesive. So and I will add in another adhesive in here in a little while. So while I'm allowing that to dry, or thinking that I'm allowing that to dry, I decide to go ahead and mount that panel onto some more of these tumbling tower blocks and using some wood glue. So both the tumbling tower blocks and the wood glue are just Dollar Tree things. That, yeah, they work for me. So I'm going to put a little wood glue on each of those blocks, and then give it just I didn't give it very long to dry. I think just, you'll see here, I'm going to smash them down in a second and give them a second to dry. And then it is secure enough that I can add it to, yeah, you'll see. See, I'm just smashing this around. It's already getting pretty stuck, and then I will grab that glue and put it on the back of the blocks and mount that into my vignette box to make a little shadow box. And I don't know why I like this, why I like the floating kind of element. I almost wish I'd cut those panels just a tad smaller, so the floating of it was more obvious, I suppose. So I'm going to line that up. I think my head's going to get in the shot for a second just so I can look over it to make sure all the spaces around are about even. Yeah, there we go. Of me looking at it. And I am noticing here that, I don't know, the bird is not floating the way that I want, and it's not sitting, and that glue is, and I'm going to pull out a toothpick and more of my 6000, and I'm going to futz with it for a while. You don't get to see all of it, but then I come back in with some Fabri-Tac and a toothpick and try to use it, and I'm going to leave it to dry overnight. Kind of let it be flat so I can dry it overnight and come back in the morning. So this was probably like 5 o'clock at night, and I went back to it at about 7:30 the next morning. I think that's about right. And it was dry then. So you can see that's kind of flopping around. It needs to be bent back down. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm using a 1/8 inch piece of wood there to try to like give the little space that I want so I can bend it against it. So once I get that bent, I'm going to give you a look at it. It's going to take, yeah, I futz with it far too long. And you can see it's kind of trying to flop into it. It was a whole trial thing. But once I get that bent just the way I want, it's done. See here, it's not exactly, so I'm going to bend it. And where the glue kind of peeled up a little bit on that side, and because of the bending of the plastic, it wasn't as black there as I wanted. So I'm going to come back in with just a little bit of black craft paint and paint over where that glue and the plastic kind of bent, just so that it's, and you can see I'm using my finger to kind of pull it out and bleed it onto that Duralar. But I really liked how the Duralar worked. It's super matte, and it's kind of I don't know, it's a perfect little silhouette. Alright guys, that is all I have for week 2 of the Seek, Gather, Create challenge. I encourage you to go to Instagram, click the hashtag, check out the hostesses and what everybody else has made for this, and play along. It is a lot of fun to kind of see what's in your stash and create from it. I can't wait to see how you're inspired, and if you like this, make sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see y'all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.